Welcome, welcome, Biospherian community. My name is Duncan Berry and I co-direct the Biosphere Collaborative here in the Cascade Head Biospheres region. And welcome to everyone who ever wanted to know about biospheres, both internationally and in your backyard, but didn't know who to ask. And hopefully you'll learn something you didn't know about biospheres. This is a UNESCO designation that we share with 750 some odd other biospheres globally. And so we're sort of a franchise, right? You get the benefit of all these other people's experiences all around the world. And so we said, about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, we said, let's stand it up in the community. It really doesn't come with money. It doesn't come with mandated laws. It is a designation, and it says, you live in a biologically sensitive, really beautiful place that has people inside it. And we've got an experimental platform we'd like you to try standing up in that community if you'd like. And so we said, we'd like. We're going to start off with a little context. And the first part of the context is a poem I wrote recently called Biosphere, strangely enough. And we're going to show you a PowerPoint full of just context, literally 4.5 billion years of the biosphere history on this planet. Then we'll jump forward into modern day and how the Man in Biosphere program was created originally in 1972. And then fast forward to what are we doing here in this community and how could you become involved if you wish or know more about it. So yeah, I think that's about the recap for the night. So with that, I think we'll start out with some context and a biosphere poem. In the spreading darkness of the universe, surrounded as we are by fragments of scattered light, hanging suspended, our curious probing of these vast reaches has found only searingly hot or numbingly cold neighboring worlds, while under our feet lies the spinning domain of a welcoming planet, an orbiting experiment on a grand scale. This thermal anomaly perfectly distanced from its energy-rich parent star, we have given names to its spheres within spheres, the lithosphere of land, the hydrosphere of water, the atmosphere of air, and a blue-green, habitable, life-harboring planetary epidermis we call the biosphere. Exquisite, resilient, scarce 12 miles thick, top to bottom, stretched from the crushing depths of the sea to the thinned air 3.5 miles above our heads. This is where life stretches itself between the tiniest microbe and the largest mammal. This is what our forebears' stories were made of, what they meant when they spoke of the circle of life. This teeming sphere with its 6 billion species and counting, like a jazz song that's been playing since the first bacteria formed in an ever-changing riff in the key of carbon. While remembering this, go find a door or a window. Look out upon this thin, wild, and beautiful bubble we have been given. Breathe. Listen. Celebrate your place in this circular, singular gift, this biosphere. So there's the Cascade Head Biosphere Reserve, or what we call region, because in the United States, reserve has been very polarizing, so we use the word region now. That's the place, right? And we are the people within that place, so that's why we are the collaborative. But one of the things that we talk a lot about is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So we're going as a collaborative. Everyone recognize this beautiful estuary? Is that like some kind of world-class, amazing, beautiful? I think of this picture as the blue dragon with its head out in the ocean. So I promised to take you on a really quick spin. So this is, we're going to go back 4.4 billion years. And they have just recently revised, this is the wonder of natural sciences, they've just revised the history of life on the planet from 3.7 billion years to 4.5 recently. So just suddenly all those millions and millions of years just appeared in Quebec, Canada, on this hydrothermal vent where they found early forms of life. So that's how far the biosphere goes back. So what are all these spheres again? What is a biosphere? And this is the entire planet in cross-section quickly, but you can see, just like the poem, the lithosphere being this mass of stone and rock and earth, the hydrosphere being all that is water, and then the atmosphere being that which harbors life up to about 3.5 miles above our head. That is the thinnest, tiniest little spherical membrane around this planet. 12 miles. The only place where there is a biosphere, or there is bio of any sort. So that term, biosphere, you hear it a lot, but it was coined by this geologist back in the late 1800s. He was an Austrian, and this was his quote, and it was one of the first times that it had ever been heard, and people adopted it very quickly as a description. So then, what is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve? So we're going down from a planetary scope, right, to these locations on the planet that a body that is international, made up of most of the countries on this planet, who've said, you have a very special place at Cascade Head. Biologically sensitive, full of a lot of threatened, endangered, and otherwise species. You have people living inside the biosphere. So this is, we'll see this in a minute, but it's not a park. It's not a conservation play. It's how can humans, in their natural habitat, this is our natural habitat too, how can we act in a sustainable manner with those biologically sensitive areas that we live in? Let's try making these biospheres into experiments of sustainable living. So this is the odd couple. I love the fact that these two men, you think it's going to be Aldo Leopold or, someone, Arnie Ness. No, these two men back in the 70s got together to sign the SALT Treaty. At the same time, they have been brought by staff this idea of détente through a network of places that people loved, sort of a people-to-people, land-to-land effort. And they created, and it's badly in need of a new title, but the Man and Biosphere Program. It started in Russia and it started here. Now, originally we had 43 of them. We're down to 28 in this country, but elsewhere, this idea has exploded to where from that original 60 or so that were designated by Brezhnev and Nixon, it's now grown to over 750 worldwide, and it's growing by the month. Every 10 years, you have to re-up as a community and say, we're into the work that it takes necessary to earn this designation. And a lot of places in the United States just kind of went, meh. There wasn't the groundswell that there is here. So again, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. There's probably 2 people in your whole life that will remember what UNESCO is. But this is what they set out to do here. This is the Man and Biosphere Program. We call it the MAB program. But I love some of the language, combining the natural and social sciences with a view to improving human livelihoods and safeguarding natural and managed ecosystems, thus promoting innovative approaches to economic development that are socially and culturally appropriate and environmentally sustainable. But this one is the one that I think of the most, to foster harmony between people and nature. And then these are, I think, really worth thinking about. Participatory dialogue, knowledge sharing, poverty reduction, human well-being improvements, respect for cultural values, and society's ability to cope with change. So they're not parks, right? They are an experiment in a different way to relate to the habitat that we've been in. I like to say that the ice sheets pulled back 10,000 years ago, and salmon started running up the streams, and large bipedal mammals came by Bidarka. So we have lived here and belong here. How we're here is what we're trying to look at with the Biosphere Program. This is a picture that perfectly sums up this description, but this is Cascade Head, the West Wind Spit, and then you can see the estuary, but you can also see there's that city. It's creeping into the biosphere, right? So the biosphere actually travels 3/4 of the way down Lincoln City. So you might live in the biosphere and just not know it, right? These biospheres are officially designated by UNESCO, but as I said before, there's no mandated laws. This is not a big brother thing, right? This is not like a federal designation. This is an international designation. Biospheres are supposed to be Switzerland, so when we have no particular political affiliations or axes to grind, we are trying to make this a better place to live, work, and play for all species. So they also provide sort of a practical blueprint. So when they say, you've got a special place here, they don't just say, good luck. They say, this is what's working elsewhere. This is part of that blueprint. These are really remarkable and worth Googling at another time. But the Sustainable Development Goals that UNESCO created and the UN created were to address both human and habitat and environmental issues all around the world, not just here, right? Since they've come out, and they were supposed to be for biospheres, they've since been used by thousands of governments and businesses and NGOs around the world because they're so useful. And if you look at them, they're really a pretty amazingly aspirational. So there's this toggling back and forth from that which we completely depend upon, which is the planet itself, and how we're acting as humans. And each one of these has intense metrics behind it. It's not just a pretty saying. It's like, okay, so how are you going to reduce poverty in Lincoln City again? I made this first map about a year and a half ago, and it says 669. This new one was, as of today, 759. So it's not easy forming these things. It's not easy going through the criteria and being nominated, you know, all of these things. So in just around a year, we've had 90 more added worldwide. I think that's partly because we're watching a lot of devastation happen, a lot of species loss. It's on every continent, almost in every country in the world, well, 136 of them. Sometimes we talk about them as being extractive economic zones, which I think is a really interesting way for, you know, to think about it as a human. Costa Rica is a great example. They have taken some really rare, biologic, and beautiful places where humans live and made them into biosphere reserves. One of them is this Agua y Paz Biosphere Reserve. And the amount of visitors and the amount of revenue, it's 10% of their GNP. And it's non-extractive, and it's value added. So we sometimes think of it as you could have your teenage daughter working at McDonald's slinging hash, or she could be a kayak interpreter on the estuary making 4 times as much, right? And she is connecting people in a deeper relationship with the living planet at the same time. So those 28 biospheres, you can see them, they're scattered. There's quite a density on the East Coast. There's a fair amount in California. There's 3 big ones in California. And then there's a bunch in Canada as well that are sort of our neighboring biospheres. And we serve on committees where we're in constant contact with the others. So this is ours, right? This is in your backyard, right? Oregon had 3. We now are down to the 1 because people in this community and organizations, Forest Service, Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council, the city of Lincoln City, they stood up and went, whoa, 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 yeah, we'd like to be in. What does it take? And so they came up with a series of promises that over the next 10 years, we're going to deliver this. In 3 years, we're going to get our report card on that. We're going to be in Dordogne, France. They're going to sit down and go, okay, Cascade Head, how'd you guys do? And we're going to report out, and they're going to give us a grade, and hopefully we'll get to continue doing what we're doing. So what you can see is that in 2017, when we did get re-upped, we were able to extend the entire watershed to the biosphere. This was decided by gravity, right? If water droplet falls within this line, it's going to end up at the mouth of the Salmon River. And then here's that marine protected area and reserve I was talking about earlier. And so we've got this land-sea connection that's super cool. Right? This could make a big difference over time between a neighboring place, Seaside, Newport, and ourselves is this non-mandated but sort of patchwork of mandated and non-mandated protection and community. How many of you are familiar with the Cascade Head Scenic Research Area? You ever heard of that? Yeah? Yeah. I won't dwell on it too much tonight, but we just celebrated its 50th anniversary. It was mandated. It went through Congress, and it was given $60 million, and it bought a lot of land in the Salmon River. It's to preserve it in the same condition it was in the 70s, There are a lot of mandates that come with it, but when you go there, you enjoy the beauty of it. When I look out at night, there's not one light. It is a place to be in the wild. So there's a braided history between the scenic research area and the biosphere, and worth looking into at some point. Again, that land-sea connection, 100,000 acres, really rare and really beautiful. If you haven't gone out in the water on the estuary, or hiked the head, or gone across to the spit at Westwind, or taken part of programs at Westwind, we have a place worth flying 20 hours to get to, but it's right in our backyard. And most people, they go by it on 101 and go, oh, I wonder what that is. Boom. So it's okay, keep going, that's fine. Well, the people that really want to be there are gonna find it. I wanted just to share our vision and mission with you really quickly, because visions are supposed to be a stretch, right? This one I think we can only fail at, but I really think emphasizes that we have taken this place as our teacher, right? Natural systems as our teacher. So to be as beautiful and balanced in our humanness as this extraordinary place. I mean, just to dwell on that for a minute, it's like, wow. I look out at the head and at the river and I go, that's a really tall order, But what a wonderful thing to aspire to. And then, in terms of our mission, fostering generations of engaged stewards where nature has rights, which is a big movement throughout the world right now. We just got back from going to Aotearoa in New Zealand and studying it. Art illuminates science. We'll look at some evidence of that in a minute. And then research drives climate action. Those are our sort of three pillars. So this is just a snapshot of our first 4 years, but we sat down and went, what have we done? How did it have an impact on the community? And we don't expect you to read all the small print, but we did exhibits. We provided a lot of education to the local school districts. We had a ton of community events and engagement. We really got serious about climate. And then art illuminating science is kind of like our secret sauce. Early days, we used to sit people down and say, we're going to tell you all about the marine reserve, and there's going to be a lot of science, and we're going to teach you about it. And we'd have 6 people show up, and they all fell asleep. As soon as we made it a Gyotaku workshop and we started printing the creatures of the marine reserve, we told them all the exact same stuff, but they were like, yeah, tell me more. I want to know that a rockfish lives to be 100 years old, because people are going to ask me when I go home about my artwork, and I want to be able to tell them the story. So it's that, they start to have a relationship at that point. So here's our programmatic pillars. Our pillars have evolved from a variety of different things that we've gone through, one of which was a listening tour that we conducted. And that was 18 months in our community, talking to leaders in the community, saying, what's going on for you? What are you doing? What are your challenges? And what resources do you need to do it better? And so that was one of the things that we did. We also took the promises that had been made to the UN, and then we took what we were passionate about and loved and were seeing in our community. Education, whole systems. We are developing our own K-8 outdoor field education, all of which are STEM related, meet all the criteria, and are a gift to overworked teachers and to the kids that don't get outside, right? So we take them into the estuary and their eyes just get really big. And our goal, we tell them every time, is we don't ever want you to forget this day as long as you live. And we've heard back from a lot of them that they have not. In fact, they'll come up to you in the grocery store and say, I remember the day with salmon, So that's really near and dear to our heart. And we now we have completed 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we're working on 7th and 8th. A lot of these kids have never gone on a field trip. Yeah, it's very sobering. That was my favorite thing to do in school, right? I mean, it's like, I'd hang in there for PE and being able to go on a field trip, and none, right? So then rigorously observing the thermal effects of climate change. We are measuring in the Sentinel site of the biosphere. It's the only program like it in America, where we are looking at 4 separate habitats: oceanic, nearshore, riverine estuary, and uplands. And we've got world-class scientists working with us and some world-class artists. So it's like that, remember that balance between art and science and how to communicate what you're doing? And it's the early days for us still, but we have so many people say, I'm worried about climate change, I just don't know what to do. We said, well, we were too, and this is what we're trying to do with the skills that we had. The Forecast project really grew out of a great deal of concern about climate change. And we were very aware of the impacts on the ocean and also the communities that depended on the ocean. And we were searching for a way to make a difference.
So the Forecast project is establishing a long-term set of observations, engaging citizens to help make those observations, and to provide a framework or a context for the changes that we're seeing.
We're bringing these communities together to really think about and understand that climate change is happening, it's happening in our backyard, and we can come together as a community to impact that in a positive way and have some change.
One of the magic elements of the Forecast project is that we have a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve as our sentinel site. It's the place we're really focusing as a metaphor, as an example of a coastal ecosystem.
It has almost every major ecosystem that is represented from the Oregon coast within a very small geographic area. So not only does it have these ecosystems, but it's a big part of the conservation efforts and how we can potentially manage these systems down the road.
So this Sentinel site is one of 700 sites in the world that UNESCO and the United Nations has said, this is really an extraordinary place. And it's not just extraordinary for its biological values, it's the interaction between humans and those biological values. So it's beautiful places that have humans braided into them, because humans are animals that are in their natural habitat. They live here. They came here after the last ice age. They belong here, just like salmon belong here. How they are here, we're very focused on.
The way that our project hopes to engage citizens and the community is through a variety of different lenses. The core part that we're trying to figure out right now is actually the citizen science, so the data collection.
One of the things we talk about in the project is art illuminating science. It's like, oh, that kind of rolls off the tongue. What are you talking about? What happens when an artist goes out in the field with a scientist and they're looking at exactly the same 10 square feet? Rather than it just being something to measure, it's something to experience. And I think that art can do that in a way that our mental abstraction can't. So I think if there are saviors today in the environmental movement that could move us forward as a culture, it's going to be the poet scientists. It's the scientists that can see the big picture and the patterns and are creative. When we explore deeply what's happening to these living systems through art, through science, through traditional ecological knowledge, we're going to develop insights that other people have not, and also, hopefully, solutions to some of the problems we're facing. We have team leads that head up a habitat. So we have, the 4 habitats of uplands, riverine, estuarine, nearshore, and oceanic. And there's someone that lives and breathes and is responsible for the physical habitat itself. And almost like a service bureau inside the project, you have leads that are responsible for art, science, and traditional ecological knowledge. And they are of service to those habitats. And so what you get is a very, very dynamic mix of worldviews. Just like your body has a lot of tools to deal with an immunological response, we need that same biological response to these huge changes that are coming at us, and we need the diversity of humans and their backgrounds to do so.
What I bring to it as the science lead is the formal way that we make measurements, and that we can attach an accuracy and an uncertainty to those measurements, and we can, in a sense, have high quality data that will live on.
The volunteers will actually have a variety of different roles. Science data collection is only one of them. Citizen science is what we're focusing on right now because it's the data that we need to get up and running, and everything else will kind of grow from that.
So we're providing a project where they can come out, join us in the field, in the habitats, and help us make some observations and measurements that are scientifically sound, and we can put them in our databases and we can see those changes over time.
What a volunteer gets to do is be inside science, be inside art, be inside traditional ecological knowledge, and their work counts. This is all going to contribute and provide traction to arguably the largest existential threat we face as a generation. What a wonderful opportunity for all of us to work together and to make that difference together.
And so when you put those things together, it's so much more powerful. We'll absolutely take our data and make it part of the network up and down the West Coast.
We may think we're in control. All it takes is one winter storm or, flooding of a major city or whatever it is to give us all something in common. Some part of us really loves to meet challenges, threats, or opportunities together. The one thing that we know in this project is we are stronger together.
People understand there's change and they understand we have to do something about it, but they get intimidated by it. They can't change it themselves. They can't fix it themselves. So what they have to realize is to just do a little bit.
There's such great potential for life-changing experiences when you view climate change as an opportunity, not just as a problem. The future won't be planned, it will be designed. When we were thinking about the project design, we were saying, what's the best immune response as humans to our climate unraveling? How can we be as diverse and resilient and insightful as possible in designing this program and not just making it like any other project?
So by bringing the volunteers with us, they get to see under the hood of what we're doing and they learn what we're doing and do it themselves. And then they can go back to their communities and spread the word about, I actually made these measurements and look at this, here's the change, and here's why it's important.
Whatever your passion is, if you are concerned about climate change, there is a way for you to help us with this project.
We're actually building community. And so if you're a funder, you're a project partner that wants to be part of the inner team, you're a volunteer, build that community with us. It won't happen without you. And then finally, community engagement. So exhibits, workshops, speaker series, like this one. We've had quite a range of things in the speaker series itself. So education, this is the videos I was telling you about. If you're interested, go on YouTube. We've got 9 videos of Raindrop to Sea, which is a gravitational exploration of watersheds and the water cycle. We introduce them to the species that are within those watersheds, and that is the secret life of salmon, and really as superheroes. Like they're in our midst, but they are superheroes. And then Nature's Families was this last year for first and second graders. When you were in first and second grade, family was everything, and we're just showing them that the entire coastline is a family, and how those other creatures raise their families, and how that's very similar to ours, and how it's very different. This is it's one of my favorite shots of this. This is our salmon program, and these kids are seeing fry, native fry, for the first time, and you'd think they had seen a Sasquatch, They immediately go over their boots and start screaming and jumping up and down. It's a really wonderful moment. So let's watch our field day video and see some of these kids. Partners build a K-8 program so that this isn't an anomaly.
What about the salmon?
Get them in kindergarten and build a conscious ladder of relationship and connection.
For a lot of kids, this is just one of their first chances outside of the classroom to really think about learning in another context.
We always learn how to pair some of these more scientific concepts with these universal concepts of things like family and love and protection.
So what do you got there now? When they get to the field, they're able to kind of breathe it out a little bit, kind of really immerse themselves into what's here. And so they're actually experiencing it versus just hearing about it.
So they are about to die.
Every group amazes me how much they know. They can relate to families. That's their world right now.
Are you ready?
We picked this idea of exploring nature's families, particularly for this age group, because they know their parents already, now they know their teacher, their families are kind of growing in a sense, and so then we're just introducing them to a whole other world of families.
We haven't had very many salmon in the pool. So today, water cleared up, water dropped. Oh, look! And when we started wading in the creek and kicking up silts, they swam into that human-caused cloud of sediment and started feeding. And so they came and showed themselves in a relationship with humans. And I don't know if any of those kids are going to forget that part. It stops being something in their heads and starts being something in their hearts and in their guts.
Hi, and welcome to Exploring Nature's Families.
We developed a series of videos first off, and then teaching curriculum as well that goes to the teachers, and the teachers and the students go through these materials. Then we get them out here in the field, so it's kind of like the third leg of the stool.
Whoa, look at that. All of what they were doing today, I think what these experiences about is feeling something.
These chicks will be ready to fledge. It's been really great to see them connected to their own lives, to their families, and just kind of walk away feeling like they get to be a part of this ecosystem.
What grows a tree is what gets buried inside here.
The excitement that they have when they get off the bus all the way through the day, learning about salmon and Sitka spruce and the great blue heron and the way they interact with the estuary, and then also about us as humans and how we interact with the estuary and the values and the needs that we have.
These kids have never taken a field trip since they were in kindergarten. That is so wrong. Like, where are we putting our emphasis that the rest of the world is just a bolt-on?
I'm gonna frame it when I get home.
You won't care for something unless you have a relationship first. So we are creating a relationship.
Thank you.
The power of what could come out of 8 years spent with each other is almost unimaginable if you do it in the right way. You know, one of the wonders of these videos, the instructional side of them that Richard has aided us in is a lot of these kids will get off the bus, they'll come over and I'll say, so do you guys know what a lateral line is on a salmon? They'll go, oh yeah, that's magnetite, that's a GPS function that they use for survival. And then I'll ask them another question. They've watched the video so many times. Then I go, okay, just get back on the bus. You know? So it's really a wonderful combination that actually COVID introduced us to, because we wanted to get kids out in the landscape, but they couldn't get in buses at the time. So we turned into a video company, a media company with Richard and Merle's help. And that gave us the classroom component. Otherwise, we never would have done that. So COVID had silver lining for us. Now we can do both, and it's very powerful. So last leg of the stool, those three pillars, community engagement, right? So you saw this earlier, but this is a calligraphy my mom did just before she died. And we used sand as a giant canvas for communicating and just making beautiful art. And arguably, this is one word that sums up everyone's experience when they come to the sea, right? It's like, ah. Yeah, and those letters are 60 feet high. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Then our speaker series, you're participating in it. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We've done a wide range of them, things that really mean a lot to all of us here. And we'll continue to do them, so keep an eye on our website for additional speaker series starting in the springtime. We have an exhibition thanks to our partners at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. This particular exhibit has been up for almost 6 years. It was supposed to go up for 6 months. So 2.2 million people have seen it, and it has information on the biosphere and on the marine reserve, and then a lot of creatures. So, and then of course our workshops. Again, gyotaku, which means fish impressions. Japanese folk art has been very, very popular, but it's a deep dive into all the creatures here on that are just offshore: octopus, salmon, rockfish, wide variety. This is where we're going to show you one last video, and this is. And then we're going to have our special guest. This video was actually shot by Richard just 3 weeks ago when we had our Welcoming the Salmon Home community celebration, which we've had a hiatus. We've done it 5 years, but then we had a hiatus during COVID. And this was such a relief. I don't know how you all are feeling, but it's so nice not to think about humans for just one day. Like, no blue states, no red states, honoring another species. So that's what this day was all about. Yeah, you could come your way.
Welcoming the salmon home, of course, is about the return of these coho and Chinook salmon into the Salmon River.
It's a beautiful day.
We've got people of all ages that are getting educated on the biosphere region and what it has to offer.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And we feel that this is one of the more important community engagement things that we do because it impacts everybody and because it's historical.
It was a perfect day that we could all come down here and enjoy this exquisite place where we live.
We're kind of informal here. We're nothing really formal. We're not teaching formal lessons, but we have exhibits, we have games, we have boat tours we've had to have people get out on the water and learn about it. We get to eat or taste some salmon. So we do a lot of different things in a very informal but fun setting to get people out to learn about salmon and the importance of salmon in the life cycle. It's just so much fun to be out here with all these wonderful people just enjoying this gorgeous day in this beautiful area we call our biosphere.
One of the reasons this biosphere exists is because it has biologically sensitive areas in it. This is a living embodiment of engagement. You know, they could be watching football games. They're not. They're out thinking about another species and honoring it. People belong here. People are in their habitat. One takeaway message, we're not in charge. We're not managing anything. The illusion is, oh, we're managing our resources. No, in reality, no, it's simply not true. We're in our habitat. We're just another animal in a habitat. We happen to be a really rambunctious animal.
All aboard!
If we were part of a subduction incident right now, we would most likely, it did last time, drop 12 feet. Everything that we treasure about this place would drown, basically, in salt water. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment, you know. What would it be like if you went to a hospital and your mom gave birth to you and then died? And you we gave them, through this experience, a memory, but also a relationship with a living planet. And when you have a deeper relationship, you care. And when you care, you are in a different kind of relationship, a caring relationship with the world around you.
We tend to be, as human beings, we just take it all. We want to just use it all, take it all. We don't appreciate the cycle of protecting it.
The fact that we have a UNESCO Biosphere region is just one thing to be aware of, but then acting on it.
There we go.
So having people here connected, and today I think we've seen a lot of that, people really enjoying, time together.
Very informative.
People have been totally enthusiastic today. It's been a pure delight.
Trying to foster some new habits and some new connections. That all starts with relationships. We aspire to be as beautiful and functional in our humanness as this extraordinary place. So one of the things we haven't talked about is our partnerships. And one of the partnerships that we have is with the Skookum Wawa Writers Residency. And this is a writers residency that Melanie and I felt very strongly about. Both my parents were writers. One was a photojournalist. My father wrote a lot about First Contact in books like Trask, Moontrap, Majority of Scoundrels. And so we took the royalties from his books, which are still, I guess they're in their 38th printing now, and wanted to create a sanctuary for Native writers, emerging and established Native writers. And we do so here at Cascade Head, believing that this place that we've been seeing all these pictures of elicits creation itself, right? And so Skookum Wawa literally translates in Chinook to strong or powerful words. So we have a home here that we make available, and we bring people from throughout the West, writers from around the West. We've had 2 so far. Rena Priest of the Lummi tribe in Washington, and who is a former poet laureate of the state of Washington. And we now have our second writer, who we have really enjoyed, although we've only spent a week together, Manny Lowley. And he was generous enough the other night to say, sure, I'll share some words with you. So Manny comes from the Navajo Dene people and nation. And so he's been raised in this very earth-oriented desert environment where he's now come to the green and blue planet side of this land. And he's recently completed his doctorate and is here now amongst us and writing, which is very special. So if you could all welcome Manny Lowley.
Yad Anotso. Sheya Ashin Slindot Hobajna Aja Bashichin. Todich Ini Dashiche Do Kia Ani Dashanale. Late Setcha Tog Ola Walienigi, Dea Yesinasha. Akondet Isakade, Dea Yesi Kehashte. Belaganik Eche Eya Manny Lowley Dashijene. Akot Ego Nehoka Dien the Nenshle. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. I am Salt Clan, born for 2 who came to the water. My maternal grandparents are the Bitter Water, and my paternal grandparents are the Towering House. I'm from a place in the high desert called where the water flows through the rocks. But in that wider community, I'm from a small plateau called where the trees are spread out. That's where my family has resided since Hajine, our emergence into this world. And in the English language, my name is Manny Lowley. So that's how I identify myself, as an Earth surface person. So thank you for having me. And thank you so much to the Cascade Head Biosphere Collaborative, to Duncan, to Melanie, for being so gracious and welcoming me into this space. And also thank you to the land itself, who is our mother. I'm so appreciative of being near so much water. In the high desert, we value water a lot. A lot of our clans are water-based. 2 of my clans are water-based, so we view the water as a relative. I wanted to share a few poems with you this evening, dedicated to Cascade Head and to the land and to all of you. And so a lot of my work is in the Navajo language, and I translate it into English. And one of the beauties of the Navajo language is that it's a very active, very vibrant language. And so I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to repeat a word in Navajo, and I want you to guess its English translation. So this is the word. And if you can guess, give me a hand raised, and I'll call on you. Tro, 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 tro. Close. It is natural. Okay, water. It's a dripping water, right?
Yes.
So our word for water is tuo. And if you literally say it slow like that, it sounds like what it is, right? It's onomatopoetic. So yeah, okay. So this is a poem that I wrote prior to coming here, but it seems like an apt poem to share. And I'll read it in honor of Cascade Head. So just an important note, the poem begins and ends with an image of a mountain covered in mist. I'm not going to translate it exactly, but that's the image. Beautiful mountain. The peak obscured in dense whirls like mountain smoke. Zilnejona exhales east toward the sun's turquoise Hawan, east toward each voice and song and prayer. The breath is an offering to Nihike, our relatives. You have my heart always. A rhythm of pulse and zilbiyin sounds along each ridge, muted in the still blue of dawn. In the voice of bluebird that stirs the bluing fields, a return to Nihodeitlij before the strife. Beautiful mountain kneels below Yolgaid's how the name Zil cradles the breath, and how we go on and on and on into futures, into worlds, but always the mountain. Zil nejone belatchate ahe yildo. I was so appreciative that a part of this biosphere's central pillars is community and also young people, especially children. So in my community, I took it upon myself to be a storyteller. I tell stories, I tell poems, not just contemporary poems and stories, but ancestral poems and stories. And the reason I did that is for continuity. I have a nephew from my older brother, and in my culture, our nephews and nieces are like our children. So I also call him Shiyet, my son. And so this is a poem for my nephew, Jaden, and it's called Let There Be. A good poem is summer, my nephew said. Mirage rising from cornfields midday, pollen on our tongues, each syllable flecked with sunbeams and names not said. Yet you should know the voice is not ours alone, but a dwelling space, Ehuan's cool inner darkness before ceremony. It is you who will heal these wounds. A good poem is song, I said, so let there be mountains singing in all directions. Let there be laughter and uninterrupted innocence. Shiyet, what joy you are. Nahaniltra, nahaltien, nahaltra. And so the ending of that poem mentions rain clouds approaching, and then rain falling, and then rain all around. And the last poem I'm going to share also mentions a mountain, and I'll also read it in honor of Cascade Head. If you're interested in this poem, it was printed in the Arkansas International. It's available online. And so I'll read it in Navajo first, completely, and then I'll read it in English. And so for the Navajo, just listen to the sounds, because it's a very beautiful, very rhythmic language. Dole biyin. Khodeya da doli hat khal jinne bid dot isn't a hayil kango nahadlingo dot is nled zil khake dole yet ahgo sisna jinne haseya ade the end the epic inya ade the end the nashich had zi bizad a nadan betsiga yagadgo khadedin be Ahajon go nahadlin go shich hadzi getsho isent sisna jinne bekha go hajon shil ahot di be nansa di be nashid zil dolel di be she inna nasht it dolel di be nahajon dolel. Bluebird Song, with words from Rexley Jim, originally appearing in Navajo. At emergence, Bluebird was singing, with deep blue wings like dawn rising, flying near the mountain's crest. Bluebird called out, I ascend White Shell Mountain. At the summit, I come upon the holy people. At the apex, the holy people speak to me. Their language is corn tassels dancing, corn pollen all around, beauty and harmony restored. Like this, they speak to me. Be still. Listen. Can you hear it? On White Shell Mountain, I am whole, peaceful. With this I return. With this I will be strong. With this I weave my life into being. With this, let there be oneness. Thank you.
Well done, Manny. Nanny, wow, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about the difference between hearing about data and then listening to Manny's native tongue and his words and feeling that. And the difference of, we're very lucky as humans to be able to process things like that so differently, right? Yeah. So thank you, Manny. This is just a quick thing that we do for ourselves. We give ourselves sort of a report card. If any of you are interested, it's on our website, but it gives you an idea of like, okay, so all this stuff you're doing, does it have an impact, right? And so this is our way of doing an infographic, just to allow ourselves to think well about the next year that's coming up. These are also our partners. You remember we said we were collaborative, and if you want to go far, go together. So these are some of the organizations that we link arms with and go forward together. We have an extraordinary group of humans here gathered along this coastline. Newport alone is being called the new Silicon Valley of oceanography in the world, not in America, but in the world. So we came down in the right place, y'all. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming.